Welcome to another episode of the GrAE Area. I'm Isaiah Rose, Ask Isaiah. I'm with Frank Tier. And this particular episode, obviously during unfortunate and trying times, this is an episode that is much needed and an opportunity for us to voice our opinion on something that isn't really gray area related. It's either very much right or wrong, and I feel like this moment in time is a moment to voice support for not only George Floyd, who most recently lost his life on Memorial Day 2020, but for a lot of injustices that the African American community has faced over the last hundreds of years. So this is the time to voice that and really just express what's going on right now. So Frank, you've been on the front lines over the last couple of days in terms of protests and just being outside and what's going on from your vantage point. First of all, how do you feel about not just George Floyd's untimely death, but just the climate of what's going on and what's really happening?
Yeah, I think it's no secret that whatever we've seen this last week was like a culmination, right? This was like it's been bubbling, like this has been a bottle that's been shaken for decades, centuries, right? And what looking and what we're seeing now, and I mean, it's just the overflow of that, right? And so yeah, I mean, tragic events, not only George Floyd but Breonna Taylor, weeks before, Ahmaud Arbery, right? Then what we saw from Amy Cooper in Central Park, like we've seen too many events. I mean, and yes, they are all isolated, right? But they all stem from the same thing, right?
Right.
That woman in that park knows that, and I mean, she has the privilege, right? She knows that law enforcement has been set up to work for people who look a certain way, and she tried to weaponize her privilege. That would have led to hoping that it led to the arrest or worse of that man in that park, right? So I think this is like a perfect storm, and perfect for lack of a better term. But COVID was happening, right? You see communities of color, particularly Black communities, were impacted the most by it, right? Whether it be the health results of it, the health of it, or like financially. And now we're seeing, I mean, that again, Black folks have another "I can't breathe" slogan, right? Or another "hands up, don't shoot," right? Or another hashtag, right? And there's been one too many hashtags. So what we've seen, right? Whatever experiences, folks upset with that. So there's been a lot going on, right? People are talking about looters, riots, right? And yes, feel how you want to feel about that, right? But also, don't let any of that take away from why this is happening, right? Whatever wrong has come from, whatever wrong people think has happened this week, if people think rioters and people looting are wrong, I have my issues on that, right? And I would argue that that's also a part of mass protests, right? Throughout history, those things are byproducts of protests, so that happens, right? But if you're concerned with that happening, then you should have been disgusted over the past decades with the way that Black people have been treated in this country. So that's just my thoughts on that. And the protests they've been good. The ones I've been to have been fairly peaceful, right? The one in the city got a little, I mean, antsy towards the end. There's interaction with police. There's the viral video where the police kind of truck plows through plows through a crowd in Park Slope. I was right there for that. Like right there. That's before we marched to Union Square. So that was a contentious. I seen some people just destroying things and stuff. That's not like really my avenue, my area, but we did experience that. But yesterday it was all peaceful. There was no score up with the cops, no property being destroyed. So yeah, it's been cool to be outside to see people in solidarity. There's been a lot of people who aren't Black who's been there with us, which is a cool thing, right? But we have to make sure that people aren't doing it just to look cool, right? Like everyone who's out there should also be in their homes, at the dinner tables, at works, being out as well, like saying, hey, this is racism. I mean, and these people have been through a lot in this country, and they're doing this because of that. So marching with us looks cool, right? But that's the cameras are on, right? So what you do when the cameras are off are most important for a moment in a movement like this.
And I feel like, to your point about the timing of it, is almost like God works through circumstances and tragedy to teach us a lesson, right?
Yep.
So for COVID to happen in the fashion that it's happened and really shut down, sports and really have us home to pay attention to certain things,
Yep.
for George Floyd's death to happen in the fashion that it happened, and you see the full scope of how he died.
Yep.
If we go back throughout our lifetime, let's say 30 years, there's been a lot of obvious traumatic situations. You can go back to Amadou Diallo in '99, Abdul Nawima in '97. That's just New York City. You could talk to Oscar Grant. You could talk to so many Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. So many different things have happened where you don't necessarily have the video. While you do have Eric Garner, you didn't necessarily see it from the very beginning. You usually saw clips of how he was being restrained with force in a way that obviously he eventually lost his life. But to see Floyd's death in the magnitude that we did in the full scope of it, I really think it's poignant, and how it affected people in the fashion that it did is, like you're saying, it's not isolated. So that brought the worst of everything out of people in a sense to say those feelings. But I think the unification that we've seen, not just with us as African Americans, but corporations and usually people that would usually toe the line or be in the middle or not try to rub anybody the wrong way. They're deliberately coming out in support of African Americans in a way that we haven't seen before.
That's been cool, right? Some folks stay away from social political issues, this kind of stuff, because they don't want to ruin their brand. But I think what we've seen for the most part are folks, a lot of celebrities, white celebrities, speak out and be very, this isn't the black and white. This isn't like a gray kind of issue. This is a clear wrong. We can speak on it, and they've taken backlash for it. But I think they will. Seth Rogen went on a F4 spree, right? He said, "I'm supposed to be BLM. You feel away, unfollow me, but I don't care, right?" And people was like, "This is wrong." He says, "Well, don't F off. My movies, don't watch it. You don't deserve to watch it anyway. This is that." So I think that's been cool. People have this is a side you gotta pick. Police officers are agents of the states. The state has been racist since its inception, right? It's grown because it's been racist, right? So when you think about how it's expanded, how it's conquered more land, how it's gotten really wealthy. It's this country has been made wealthy and has grown off the back of racism, right? So I don't know why people think things were automatically changed because civil rights activists died in the 60s, right? It's persisted, right? And it exists today, and I'd argue that it's as brutal as it is today, right? Because when people set these laws in motion, right, these racist policies, the plan isn't to take place a year or two after. The plan is to have it last long, right? So you see the worst effect of slavery and the worst effect of racism. You see it today, right? You see how much schools are disproportionately funded, right? You see how housing is disproportionate, right? You see how mass incarceration, America has 13% black folks, right? But over 30% of them of judges comprised of black people, right? You see these things take shape generations after those initial things were signed and put into place. So it's people have picking a side, rightfully so, and those who haven't have been called out for it and called out in a vicious kind of way, as vicious as social media can be, right? No one gets hurt, but people have been canceled. People have been
What do you think the difference is from a corporation standpoint compared to, let's say, 8 years ago? What is the difference? Because we've had riots before. We've had blatant murders on camera in some form of fashion, or even when cops are acquitted, knowing that they were guilty, and civil suits say they were guilty. There's been upheaval before. So what do you think the difference is this time? From a business standpoint.
I think that the phrase "the world is watching" hasn't been any more true than it is today, right? Like at a place where people aren't doing anything, there's nothing to be distracted from. People are looking at this moment. I mean, the world, like these BLM processes have happened in multiple countries. Happened in South Africa, happened in Amsterdam, happened in London, right? It's been everywhere. So I think the world is really watching what everyone is doing, right? And those who aren't doing things that stuff people are being called out. And also mass media, and I mean social media is at a place where it hasn't been before, right? So like the negative backlash, right? And the reminder of that is just always there, right? If I want to see what Target did or didn't do during this, I can Google it, right? If I want to see how people respond to it, I can Google it, look on Instagram, Twitter, and see what happened, right? So I think that folks who have to be really careful, and I mean about how they respond to this, right? Because the evidence lasts forever. As opposed to, I mean, certain things before got something under the rug, but 2020, you got Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and I mean, like you can Google things in seconds. I mean, everything that you do or don't do is documented and will be reshared, reposted, retweeted millions and millions of times, and that's your ass. I mean, so to say. So I just think that people are really careful, both in how vocal they are and how silent they are, right? Because like if you hear, silence is just as bad as anything else. Silence is violence, right? And if you choose to be quiet or if you choose to play the fence, well, you'll take a hit for that. And I mean, if not like in being called out, you'll take a hit monetarily. And I think people don't want to do that, right? So Target played it okay, right? They still got destroyed, but they came out and I mean, you know, we have money and I mean they can rebuild that, right? And I mean, so they played it okay. I mean,
Right.
as okay as they probably could, right? So companies also, I get it, you're losing you losing money, right? But understand that these things are byproducts of a bigger issue, right? So however product you lost or got destroyed, and I mean, pales in comparison to what people have faced in this country for since its beginning. So you know, just choose choose the right one. I mean, so you know.
But it's the irony here is like you see, to your point about brands and companies that might play the fence in years past, they're deliberately saying or showing that, you know, they're in support. You can look at most recently a tweet came out from the San Francisco 49ers talking about Black Lives Matter and you know, we need to stop racism, all these different things, right? But the irony here is that the same things that everybody is fighting for and protesting for right now, in a fashion that they're doing so, your quarterback or former quarterback, Colin Kaepernick, protested in a peaceful way. Police brutality, systematic oppression, all these different things that he spoke about and was trying to shine a light on in a peaceful way. They deliberately blackballed him, and now the NFL and teams and owners and coaches are coming out in support when you had somebody within your organization that stood up for these things a couple years ago.
It's really crazy that it works that way, right? And this thing that you and I always talk about, I mean, how he, as much as he wants to play football and he would be wrong, what these people have increased his profile more than it would have than it could have been on the field ever, right? Like he his name recognition and what he knelt and stood for, it's funny to say, will live on forever, right? And I think the more and more these things come to the forefront, people will see, damn, he was right. You have folks who were calling him the N-word online, right? And trashing him saying, damn, if I would have known, I would have stood and kneeled with you, right? When you were trying to talk about this thing, I took it as the flag, but now I see what it was, right? So it's just crazy, right? And for the NFL to do that just looks really, really hypocritical, right? Because it's like, yo, like, y'all still have this man without a job, right? And you sent me the article, and I mean, I read through it, and I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, y'all, you have this man without a job, I mean, and now y'all saying, I mean, BLM. He was trying to tell y'all BLM in a peaceful way. And I mean, like, yeah, maybe the socks with pigs on it was controversial, right? Maybe just sitting down, which to me isn't a problem, but they feel controversial, but he took a knee, you know what I mean? And people went his head for that, right? Like it was crazy. So now for you all to say people who colluded against him, I mean, having a job coming to say that to be saying Black Lives Matter, and I mean, racism has to end. It just looks it looks in poor taste on your part, right? And some of the issues with these really big brands is that regardless of what they really do, they'll never feel, and I mean the true effects of it, because these brands, right, they make a lot more money than they actually need, right? So even if they take a hit, a loss in profit, right, it doesn't necessarily hurt them, right? Because they make way more than enough than they need, right? So yeah, the NFL perhaps lost some views and stuff, cool, right? But this is a brand that already made far more than it needs to sustain itself anyway, right? So the loss they took isn't enough to be like tangible enough. I mean, it won't shut them down. Nobody in the NFL is going out of business. I mean, because a few folks start watching. So that's just like the unfortunate part. But yeah, I mean, you hope what they're saying is sincere, right? You hope those aren't just tweets that have the look of good faith, right? And the digression. You hope these people really do get it. I mean, because ultimately, right, Black folks can't change racism, right? We can't. I mean, because we didn't create it, right? We didn't create it, and we aren't, and we don't benefit from it, right? You all got to change it. I mean, like you all got to change the way y'all view things, change the same certain policies, right? So so the folks in those offices, I mean, that fund campaigns, right? We need you all, and I mean, to figure out how to fix this, right? Because this isn't a fire that we started, right? So
the article that Frank is referencing was a piece, op-ed piece from John Lockhart. He's a former executive in the NFL between the years of 2016 to 2019, and in his article that came out over this past weekend, he spoke about how the NFL was wrong in the way that they handled the Colin Kaepernick situation, and how he implored the Minnesota Vikings to actually sign Colin Kaepernick as a symbol of restoration for the NFL to make up for some of the wrongs that they did to Kaepernick. Now he did speak about how the NFL did go out of their way with the Players Coalition to try to, invest and try to put funds towards police brutality and different things and subjects that Kaepernick was speaking towards, but the way that they handled him as an athlete within their organization was totally wrong. So my whole issue with what's happening right now is that obviously it's a flashpoint for something that's going to change, just like we spoke about from a health perspective with COVID. Mm-hmm. Everything after this is going to be totally different. Mm-hmm. But I feel like this is not the first time that something like this has happened, mm-hmm. especially not in the social media. It's not the first in the social media era. Mm-hmm. While I feel like this is as important as ever because we're sitting still, or we're supposed to be sitting still. When Ahmaud Arbery died, is that how you pronounce his last name?
Yep.
Yeah. When he died, I felt like, because when the news came out of how he was killed, it was a couple of months prior to when he actually was killed. But the video that came out in the fashion. So now when social media picked it up, the groundswell picked it up, right? Yep. And Breonna Taylor comes right behind that, and then you got this happening. But all of this is really picking up because we're home. Yeah. I feel like if we were working or moving in the place that we would, it probably would have been swept under the rug. Yeah. It probably would have picked up, but it wouldn't have gone.
It'd been a lot easier. Yeah, you're right. Like for example, people have the rally the other day in Flatbush started at 3, right? It started at 3. We got there around 6. We marched until 11, right? We got back 11, but at 1 p.m. people were still at Great Army Plaza, right? People were still in the park. So it's like people just have a lot of folks who are working from home or unemployed have all the time in the world. And I mean, like these protests start at a time that people would otherwise have been at work, right? So all these folks who aren't in offices are in the streets, right? So you feel a lot more. That's why by this weekend, when the weekend started, you had 26 cities that protested. The next day it was 31, and I don't know how much it is now, but it's like it has grown and grown, right? Because people this time people don't have anything else to do, and I mean, so now like I'm at home, let me go out, I mean, and let my voice get heard, right? And you keep seeing incidents, I mean, of police like violating people's rights. You keep seeing images of people being shot in the head with pellets. It's just like it's crazy, right? So I think and the cops also aren't helping their case, right? If they want to be seen as like non-agitators and non-violent, well, some of these videos look really, really bad. Like, and yeah, some folks say, oh, they have a hard job, is protesters getting violent. There's been some cases where you had a girl just in the street walking, and a cop pushed her, she ended up in the emergency room, right? So there's like the same thing people are arguing against, and protesting for, you all are doing during the protest. I mean, so it's like, what's what? And I mean, like what gives? So yeah, the being home, staying still is definitely helped to make this as large as it is, because this does feel different, right? Like Ferguson, Baltimore, and it happened there, and but this seems like, whoa, like the whole nation grabbed it and just ran with it, right? So I probably won't go out to the age of curfew and stuff, right? But like everybody plans to get back out there at some point, and the voices get heard. I don't know how long this goes. I mean, this may last for several days. I mean, because these folks, what are they doing? I mean, they do their work from home, however it takes. You go outside, do what you gotta do, come back home the next day. So there's really nothing else to do. Ain't nothing open. So this may, this will go on. Now Trump hiding in a bunker, like what's good? And it's just a lot of weird stuff happening while folks are out here. Really letting their voice be heard. So it's a special time in the name of protest, right? Because so many folks have been mobilized at one time and are out in the streets, right? And I really hope that folks don't focus only on the looting and rioting. Because yeah, that's happening. Feel how you want about it, but the point is, people are angry and people want answers and people want change, right? Don't let that message, get swept under the rug of a few track records that got stolen from Adidas. That's the point.
To your point about that, and just the perception of, looting, and
Yeah.
I say that in quotations because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote a piece in the LA Times, and it's a great piece. You guys should check it out. But he spoke about how people use any reason to loot. If you talk about teams winning championships, think about the destruction that comes from that. It's a celebratory moment, but people look for any reason to be destructive. So you have large crowds in this fashion all over the world that are coming in unison to protest. There's going to be some people on the outskirts that take advantage. But I feel like, to your point, you have to look at the root cause of this
all the time, right?
And I want to, from a vantage point standpoint, like, you can see how social media is at the forefront of this. How do you feel about how mainstream media is covering it? And do you feel like it's been, do you feel like they have been as widespread as they should be, or do you think they're narrowing in on a certain narrative?
I think that I've seen a couple, and I'm also wary about how much mainstream media I consume, because I don't believe in media that doesn't have an agenda, right? Everything has an agenda, right? Whether it's right wing, left wing, liberal, non-liberal, conservative, right? Everything, right? So I think it's really hard to consume independent media in the first place, right? Like, idealist, so that's a thing. But I saw CNN and I heard some cool things. They were saying people are looting and people are doing things, and although we don't condone it, that's not what this is about, right? And don't enforce it. So I think I personally seen for the most part fairish coverage of what's going on, right? People have emphasized telling folks that people are out there really protesting, doing what they want, and anything that's happening otherwise, do with it what you want, but don't stray from why people are out there, right? And also, if you don't want this to happen at all, right, the one way to avoid all of this is to somehow look towards or put an end to some of the issues that this country faces, right? Like, nothing would be on fire, nothing would be stolen, nothing would be destroyed if Black folks didn't go through this time and time again. All right. So if you're upset about anything that's happening, well, that should propel you to try to fix some of the issues that people have run out and proposed in the first place. That's it. It's really that simple, right? You know what I mean? Then if it won't happen, right? But if America becomes fairer and more equal than anybody, and people still choose to loot, riot, and loot, then come back and holler at me. But until you all have fixed these systemic deeply ingrained issues, then folks will carry out their anger in any way that they've seen fit, because nothing so far has worked. So
then you have, to your point, everybody's talking about trying to find solutions. We have to come up with solutions, and everybody always seems to put the burden on us to fix it. And it's not in that way. When you have a man that is handcuffed and held down by 4 different officers, one with their knee on his neck, how do you explain that?
Yeah, and I can't fix that. I mean, I didn't do that. Right. Like I didn't do that. All right. And then just to justice, people keep bringing the stat that more whites get killed by cops than blacks. Yeah, true. America also has more white people, right? America is 60% white and 30% black, right? So, black folks die at a higher rate, like, than white people, right? So please don't try and mingle and like distort statistics, right? So yes, there are more white people, more of them die, right? But if you're talking about, the rate, and also how many folks who die who are unarmed, right? And how many folks who are wrongly stopped, wrongly accused, wrongly imprisoned, right? Then the number gets further and further and further, and disproportionately affects people who look like you and I. All right, so that's the issue. Don't try to play with numbers. Because we like numbers too. All right, like numbers is our thing. So don't do that. Because when homies is getting arrested, right, they're going to jail for the same thing that people aren't. Right. So talk about stop and frisk, right? If you Tashante brought up a great point. He was like, if as many cops randomly stopped boys in Park Slope, Bay Ridge, Dyker Heights, right, as they did in Bed-Stuy, East Flatbush, and East New York, you would find drugs on everybody. You know what I mean? Like stats show that drug use are the same across races, right? But only some people go to jail for it, right? And for longer time. So don't try and mingle stats, right? The issue is that because of the color of our skin, we have been targeted in a way that no one has, right? And purposely targeted. So that's just when I want to say about people who want to mingle. Well, we die by cops too. Like, nah, not like this, right? So,
well, to your point, a couple of minutes ago, you said you don't know how long this will last.
Yeah.
Obviously, due to COVID, a lot of things have been delayed. And if say this didn't happen during COVID, you would have had a lot more flow in courthouses and different things like that. You can have a quicker trial. Obviously, I think it'll still be elongated because of the media coverage, but how long do you think before there will be prosecution? I mean, even for those that are saying that, the protests and all of this is not necessarily working, the protest is what put pressure on Minnesota to actually, and the prosecutors actually, charged one of the officers. So I feel like it is working. I feel like it is shining a light and really putting pressure. But how long do you think before we can see some type of, leeway towards, a trial?
I don't have time to off the top of my head, but I do think that it is in the best interest of Minnesota and the country to expedite this case as quickly as they can, right? Because first, folks want to see the other 4 officers, jailed as well, right? People want to see them charged, right? And then folks want to see a conviction stick, right? They want to see people sentenced, right? Like it's something that like they don't want to see no 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
The initial charge, it came down was third degree manslaughter.
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of giving him a little.
Yeah, right. And I get it. It's not what we want, but if you try to charge higher, it puts more burden to prove, right? So
okay.
Yeah. So I think I actually meant to research what most in these high-profile police brutality and fatal police cases, right, happen, I actually wanted to research what most of them get charged with, right? Because I do think that if folks want him to be charged really high, and he should, but if you do that, I think it's harder for us to stick, right?
Right. Where's it like if
That's
you
like, yeah, the
if it's
nature of
if it's
police,
third degree, you
yeah,
can prove he
yeah,
was
right,
excessive.
yep,
You know,
because the nature of policing, with it being a dangerous job and people like making excuses, I mean, folks will say that, I mean, that certain things are justified. I mean, although we don't believe they are, right? I think it becomes really, really tough. I mean, for folks to prove certain things, right? So this is unfortunately third degree is what we have to, I mean, settle for. Now the person on the case is Keith Ellison, right? Black dude. I mean, like among the further left wing of the Democratic Party, right? He used to have supposed ties to Farrakhan, right? For reasons that a lot of people didn't want him to be a DNC chair, right? So he got a lot of backlash towards that. So we'll see, right? People lost faith, I mean, in DA, and this is given, I mean, to Keith Ellison. So I think fingers are crossed. We'll probably see some. I think we'll see something. I mean, justice served come out of this. We hope so. And I mean, things are tough, but yeah, people want those guys. Also, Breonna told. I mean, there's no body cam. I mean, nobody can people mad at. They fired their police chief because that's ridiculous. People want to see those folks, I mean, arrested and jailed as well. So this isn't while George Floyd may have. George Floyd may have
sparked it.
up how this look like. This ain't about. This is way bigger than George Floyd, right? I mean, so
Right.
people want to see
Right.
those cops go down. People want to see the cops grounded. People want to see the folks in Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, get convicted and stuck, right? So this ain't one fire you gotta put out. You gotta put out multiple at one time, right? So that's why I'm like, people gonna keep doing this. I mean, especially as stay-at-home orders persist, right? Some places are going back now. People still got time. I mean, stores can't open. They destroyed. Some of them destroyed. I mean, so people got time to be out there. I mean, people still work from home. People in those offices. I mean, the white folks who live up top of me, who've been outside across the street. I mean, their offices are closed definitely, so they can be in the street. So I mean, if you really want to wrap this up and make this good, y'all better come out and give us something. I mean, that satisfies us, right? And right now, I don't know what that is, because it's really hard to undo years of not having people satisfied in a couple of days. So we're gonna see how this looks, but it ain't looking good for y'all. You know what I mean? Like, if y'all want to keep seeing cop cars on fire, y'all want to keep seeing stores looted, I mean, then continue have how you carry on together here. I mean, but if you want something to change, I mean, then think about, I mean, what got to change in this country.
Now, when we speak about leadership,
yeah,
and how you spoke about the police chiefs in different states, and how there's been a push for change from a leadership perspective, not only in the country but just from a social standpoint. Everybody is looking at celebrities and different things like that. How do you feel about I mean, obviously you could look at the president and what a debacle he's been, but from a leadership standpoint, how do you feel that governors and mayors have followed suit in concert to what's going on?
A lot of folks, I think, have said the right thing, right? But those folks have to also look in the mirror and say, well, how am I practicing what I preach in this press conference, right? Like, do I live it every day for my city, right? So Cuomo has said some cool sounding things, right? But he got to go back and ask, I mean, well, how am I looking at, like, systemic racism to look to undo it in my city or in my state, right? So people have said cool things, right? Like Jacob Frey, the mayor of Minneapolis, I mean, he came out really stern, said a lot of cool things, right? But he also, I mean, increased the police budget, I mean, this past year. So you say these things, right? But we also got to hold these folks accountable, and they got to hold themselves accountable, right? Like, while you may say cool things, we would prefer your actions speak louder than your words at this moment. Because right now, it's really easy to say certain things when the camera's on. When you go back to your seat, to your office, I mean, do things that actually make lives for Black folks easier, I mean, and make them more equitable. I mean, if not, then what you're saying sounds good but falls on deaf ears because you're saying it and not living it.
Yeah. Good points. Before we wrap up, is there anything that you've seen from, like, what would you say is the difference from being on the front lines and actually seeing it to how it's being covered or how it's being portrayed on platforms, whether it be social or mainstream media. Like, what are the stark differences that you're noticing?
Yeah, I think people who we know this, know how to differentiate, right? But yeah, just stop lumping. I mean, people who may be taking fly stuff, who been, I mean, destroying stuff, stop lumping them in protesters. I mean, like, people for the most part intend to go out and protest peacefully, right? Whatever happens, like the dudes last night, I mean, who was in Soho and all that. I mean, like, say what you want about it, but the people who those weren't that isn't the same. I mean, the same people out there protesting. I mean, this game, right? And so don't lump people together. I mean, as this one bunch, I mean, group who wants anarchy, right? Like, nah, people want change, right? And whatever happens is a byproduct of everything that's going on. So just make sure that we aren't distorting or minimizing what people are fighting for, right? And what people are upset about, right? Don't call people ruthless. I mean, like thieving thugs, right? Like, nah, like that's not what this is about, right? It's bigger than that, all right? So folks, also I want to say this. When people post their status and stuff, right? Mainly white folks, don't use that as a time to jump in and say, I agree with you, but I mean, don't know. Like, if you don't agree, don't write in my post. I mean, just like be careful, all right? Because people will get at you, right? Like, don't bring up black on black crime. That's a myth. That's not a thing, right? All crime is intraracial and intracommunal, right? They have in proximity, right? So yeah, black folks kill black folks, white folks kill white folks, and so on. I mean, don't use that, right? Stop saying all lives matter. Like, nah, right. like don't say, well, cops have a hard job. It's harder being black, obviously, right? The cops signed up for these tough jobs, right? So cool, right? And also, we've seen officers show restraint with other races, right?
Most recently is 2 weeks ago when
Michigan, AR-15, screaming in your face, spitting in your face, pushing y'all. None of them got hurt, all right? So cool. So don't say that they could show restraint for the dude in Michigan with the AR-15, but they couldn't show restraint for George Floyd with no weapon, I mean, on the floor. So but just don't say that, right? Like, look at it, call a spade, right? There's racism ingrained in racism is ingrained in law enforcement because it's ingrained in this country, right? So when folks say F12, F police, they don't mean individual cops. Yes, individual cops also bring their racism and their implicit bias into it, right? But as a whole, people are talking about the system of policing that is in need of a drastic change, a drastic shift, right? So just keep that in mind, right? Like, people, for the most part, know cops have hard, tough jobs, right? But they belong to a fraternity, right, where racism is ingrained in that, and that can't be removed from it. All right. So even when we have officers of color, right, they still carry out, and I mean the ideologies of something that has been set up to affect people a certain way.
Right.
Yeah.
Good points. To your point also too, just about like trigger words.
Yeah.
And you know, all lives matter, blue lives matter. Those things, while you might mean while you might try to throw that in there as a means to try to quell the Black Lives Matter movement or what's happening right now, be careful with that, because just most recently, the Sacramento Kings suspended their play-by-play guy Grant Napier because he probably was baited.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did D Cousin set him up for that? Probably did, right?
Yeah, he probably
don't like him, right?
He probably baited him a little bit prior, and then or knew something about him that would bring that out of him.
D Cousin baited him, but I mean, he fell for the bait.
So and I just want to say, to your point about the lack of understanding or not understanding the moment, you know what I mean? And I feel like so much has happened before that. This shouldn't be new to people, or I'm finally understanding what you guys meant. No, this has been happening for years, but I feel like when the Kings suspended him for an extended period of time, they understand how it may be portrayed. So when somebody's under your status and they throw that butt in there, as soon as they throw the butt, while you might be trying to rationalize something, is no pun intended, this is not a gray area situation. It's right or wrong. It's the line. And when that line is drawn, you better be on the right side of history. So I just wanna thank you, man. You presented some great points and great insight in a lot of ways, especially from your vantage point, being on the front lines and really out there protesting. So thank you for that. Where can people find you at?
Find me at Enoch is Enoch on Instagram, and I think Enoch Stash 34 on Twitter. I also got to change that to streamline it, but yeah, that's where I'm at. Holler at me, I'm there. Chime in, comment on what you want, ask me what you want. I try to answer in a way that yeah.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ask Isaiah, AskISaiah. This is the GrAE area. That's Frank Tier. I'm Isaiah Rose. Shout out to Devin Nix Thomas. He wasn't here on this episode today, but we'll be back. We'll be sure to get him back on the tune once the NBA season starts back up, which will be July 31st going forward. So we'll be back with much more on that. But on a bigger note, rest in peace to George Floyd and all the lives that have been lost unjustly to the system.
Right.
Rest in peace, you guys, and
Breonna,
thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, for sure.
Respect.